You must be using AI in your workflows in 2025 or you will absolutely get left behind. Most AI LLMs are operating at a PhD level or similar. That's probably smarter than me and it's probably smarter than you. So the idea of the raw computing power that's available to AI is out there. It might not be perfect, but it is up to you to learn how to harness it. One of the most important skills that you will learn if you are not technical in the AI domain is prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is essentially providing the context of what you want this immense compute power to do. Sure, you've got all this information out there in the world, but how do you contextualize it into a format, into an outcome that the AI can understand and work with you towards an output, towards an outcome? Okay, so essentially, when it comes to prompt engineering, you are like a director of a movie, okay? The director is the most important part of the movie because they take the story, they take the context of what the story is, and they bring it to life using framing, using lighting, directing the resources, actors, the sets, right? That is all in conjunction for what the director sees and what the vision is. Working with a team, of course, but essentially that team is all digital. And for you to become a great prompt engineer, I think you need to become a great director of resources. And this is something that I sort of picked up from my creative background, being in comedy, being in music, right? The composer in music is the main person, right? And they are directing the resources and the various instruments towards the orchestra. In comedy, you do have a director when you create specials or when you create any show. I was a producer of comedy shows for a few years, and that required me directing my team, the comedians, directing the audience, right? And putting that together into a harmonious output of a great comedy show. Okay, so that was all done through vision, my own vision of what I thought I wanted the output to be, and then prompting people and engineering them towards that outcome with my directions. Okay, so that's the same context with AI, is that you need to become a great director, a great context provider to shape all of the resources towards your outputs. Okay, so one of the things that I'm doing with AI to improve my workflows is to actually repurpose a heap of content that I've generated over the years. And basically I'm creating a Jamil GPT, okay, a personalized GPT based on me using over 100 hours of podcast data that I've got, where I had my podcast, The Binge Thinker, where I would talk about all the things I was interested in, about technology, spirituality, self-development, etc. And I would publicly just talk about my life. So it really does have a good understanding. If you could get those 100 hours into an LLM, it would have an amazing understanding of who I am. And then what I'm also going to do is add my LinkedIn posts to it so it has the context of my technology sales advice and the way that I write. And the reason why I'm doing this is to actually repurpose all of that content into fresh, easy to use content for other platforms, namely X, and maybe I will use them for Canva outputs for carousels and whatnot. But essentially, yeah, I want to build a brand on X. And the reason why I want to do that is, let's put the political inclinations aside of Elon and stuff. I am pro Elon and what he's doing. I just think he's probably a little bit too far stretched, and I think his tism is getting his social engineering skills are being tested to their absolute limits right now. But I do believe that X has the best potential audience for the context of where I provide the full breadth of who I am. Because sure, I want to talk about technology sales on LinkedIn. It's a B2B platform, but it is restrictive in expression. And honestly, like, LinkedIn is the culture, the corporate culture that is ingrained into LinkedIn as a B2B platform is something that I actually detest and don't really care for. I've hated the corporate facade. I teach you to be your own human being, to break past that and just be a real human. And I don't think I can break through and be the real unfiltered human that I want to be on LinkedIn, right? So that's why I want to expand my long game of brand building into X and to YouTube. X for the short form and for the unfiltered expression of who I want to be and what I want to talk about. And then YouTube for the long form, and that's where just everyone is from an educational and entertainment perspective. Right? That's where I spend most of my time now as a social media platform is on YouTube. Don't even really have free-to-air TV or mainstream TV plugged in. So that's what I'm doing it for, is to repurpose all of that content, build a digital version of me, and then be able to spit out content and, you know, build faster because I don't have to manually write everything out and then automate that process. So how I'm doing that is actually through a 5-step process that I'm going to show you now. Let's check this out. So what I've got here is just a high-level workflow of what I'm doing with ChatGPT. I have ChatGPT Pro, not Premium, or whatever it is. I've got not the $200 one. I've got whatever that one is. And basically, I am using ChatGPT to use this workflow to create compelling content based on my brand, some copywriting examples that I've got there, and then to automate those outputs using scheduling tools and other automation. Okay, so basically at a high level, I have, using ChatGPT's help, I have scraped all of my URLs of my 100 podcast episodes and exported the transcript using a script. So it's got everything I've said in text format over 100 hours of content. And now I'm ingesting that right now into ChatGPT to help me create a custom GPT of me. And then I'm also going to add my LinkedIn posts because they are, the LinkedIn posts are a lot more focused on my tech sales advice and outputs, my writing structure, so it gets a better idea of the more recent context of who I am as a technology sales coach. So then once that data is in there, that's great. That's that huge pool of text and knowledge of who I am. The next thing to do is to provide brand context. Okay, this is where the prompt engineering aspect of what I'm talking about comes into play. So with brand context, basically you are giving the high-level context of who you are, what you're about, and what sort of persona, what sort of person, what sort of world you are trying to build through the outputs of your content. Okay, and providing the context of who I am, what I want to be about, what I want to share with the world. And so by having that high-level context and by knowing yourself really well and talking about that, that then reshapes all of the outputs of the content towards an intended outcome. Again, it's not going to be perfect because it's still learning about who you are and what you do, but again, you provide that initial shaping of all that data. Okay? Third step is to then add copywriting examples. Now, copywriting is one of the most important skills you will learn to develop a personal brand, to make money on the internet, okay? All sales is about communicating with influence towards an outcome. That skill is copywriting, whether it be written, verbal, etc. So using great examples, great frameworks that are out in the world, using the styles of people that I look up to as far as great writers, I will then add frameworks, copywriting hooks, those sorts of things, the things that make a great writer into the GPT so it has best practice structure for data and content outputs. Okay, so then it's getting all of my information, it knows me and what I'm about, puts my information into some easily digestible and successful formulas and outputs that people can resonate with. Then step 4 is to edit it and make sure it's brand aligned. So what do I mean by that? Like, I have to make sure that whatever I'm putting out into the world, I am satisfied with is an accurate reflection of who I am and what I'm about. Okay, so would I say, if there's a certain output, would I say that? Would I structure a sentence that way so it's as close to my natural voice as possible? Because yes, you do want to have a certain tone of voice when you are talking in the world. You have to be short, succinct, to the point, but you do still have to add, the context of how I speak, my tonality, the structure, the way that I structure words. Okay, my unique signature is in the way that I communicate to you as a human being, which is what I'm doing through video. How can you translate that into a less context-heavy format, such as literal text? Okay, so making sure that it is in alignment with who I am, and I am okay with putting this automated part of myself, which is me, out into the world. And then when I'm happy with the brand outputs and what the content is, then I will automate those outputs into the world. So X is pretty easy. You can use a scheduling tool called Tweet Hunter, where you can export the tweets, all my tweets and tweet threads as CSVs, and then automate those outputs to go out at regular intervals, so it's doing most of the posting work for me. I might also then repurpose that text and those threads into Canva, where I can create carousels where people do those tweet threads as carousels as well. They can go on Instagram, they can go on LinkedIn. And then maybe I create better LinkedIn posts as well. So more compelling copy and better structured content, which does most of that work for me. And then again, just makes the content creation process easier because it's got so much information and background on me. And then also on top of that, you would understand and reiterate this content from here. What's the best performing content? You take that top 20%, provide that as context back into this workflow, and that's what version 2 looks like and gets better and better at creating content. Okay, so that's going to be this is what I'm working on as a brand repurposing. It just saves me time as a time and effort constrained founder that now has to build a brand online on multiple platforms whilst also maintaining a life and a day job, which is extremely challenging, right? So hopefully this will help me do that. That'll help me grow and sort of divorce a little bit from LinkedIn so I can feel more expressive as a human being and feel a lot more aligned to the brand that I want to create. And that's the hope here, folks. So all of this is being done inside ChatGPT. You can ask it, right? I just literally asked it, hey, chat, I've got 100 podcast episodes that I want to repurpose into X tweets, X's or tweets or threads. How can I go through that process? And then just literally followed it. So you do have to use things like terminal and put a little coding in, but it actually makes you feel cool and useful, like you are a bit of a hacker, right? So yeah, if you want some help with that, please reach out. But if you do have a significant amount of content in the world already and you want to repurpose that and sort of shape it, again, I think that copywriting examples in point 3 is going to be very useful for most people to, again, add best practices without having to go through the effort of learning what that is. Yeah, try this workflow out. Ask ChatGPT, understand prompt engineering. That is the best way to master AI in 2025 without having an AI or a coding background. And that's what I'm doing. Hopefully this helps, and I'll see you next week. Ciao for now.